You can't become Tendulkar by watching test matches. We need to continuously relook at what we teach and how we teach and to who we teach. Are we living in a fairy tale land where we say all frogs can come in and they'll become princes? It doesn't matter. The uglier you are, doesn't matter. Beta, मैं आपको machine में डाल दूंगा, you will come as a prince. That doesn't how it works. We live in an asynchronous world.
Hello students, welcome to yet another institutional spotlight from Careers 360. Today we focus on the Jagdish Seth or School of Management, and we have with us Professor Edwin Moses, who is the CEO of JAGSoM. A bit about Professor Edwin. He is a global P&L leader who has held many senior leadership positions with global organizations, including roles in the CXO suite, and has more than 30 years of experience spanning industries, functions, cultures, and geographies. He has now decided to invest the rest of his career in the world of academics, management education, and consulting, with a commitment to help create leaders for beyond tomorrow. Welcome on board, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today to give us a bit of insights about JAGSoM and education management for students.
Of course.
My first question, sir, would be, JAGSoM was established with a distinct vision for management education. What inspired its founding, and how has the institution stayed true to that vision over these years?
As you know, Prabha, in a world of education where most schools are either owned by industrialists or industry houses, or by politicians, or by builders, JAGSoM stands out as a school that doesn't have any one of these credentials. It is a school that is driven by trust, where our only source of income is the fee, and the only place we spend money is in learner outcomes. Now, what inspired the creation of this? The inspiration for creation was Sanjay's dad, which is V.V. Padodi, and he, to make a very long story short, came from a very humble background and rose to be the Commissioner of Income Tax, Mumbai Circle, went on to establish Lal Street Journal, and went on to build IFIM. And the inspiring spirit, if you asked him, somewhere very close to the end of his journey on earth, what inspired you to do all these things, which is to focus on education and build an institution like IFIM, JAGSoM? His answer was very simple towards the end. It said it was enablement. In a country like India, education for many of us, or for most of us, or nearly all of us, is that our education is the only passport to a better tomorrow. And the anchor for the school has always been learner success. That's been purpose. So when we look at it, when we tell people and describe ourselves, we tell ourselves we are purpose-driven and mission-anchored. And purpose-driven means learner success. Mission-anchored means holistic, holistic, socially responsible, and continuously employable. That's what anchors us. We tell ourselves this every day, and every time somebody asks a question like this, Prabha, it only reinforces our own belief in repeating it again and again and again. And we've stayed true to it because we believe in it. And I always say, Prabha, the easiest story to tell is the truth.
Right. JAGSoM has something unique specified on, like the 7 anchors, and that are defining its distinct identity and academic approach. Yeah. So if you could just give an elaborate description of what these are and explain how they make JAGSoM stand apart.
So I think let's look at each one of the anchors very, very quickly, Prabha, in the interest of time. The first is that the first anchor comes from, like I said, we are purpose-driven. So the joy is not in describing the anchor, because the anchor by themselves is pretty common sense, pretty intuitive. It is why that anchor exists in a JAGSoM world that is more important. The first anchor is T-shaped professional. Why is that anchor exists? Anchor exists. T-shaped professional means you have a horizontal bar that anchors people to fundamentals, and you have a vertical bar that tells people, okay, it's going to prepare you for the career of your choice. That's all there is. Now, what drives that? Two things drive that. One is we don't prepare people for jobs alone. We prepare people for careers. Prabha, I'm sure you run a very successful family. If I look at my mom and I look at my sisters, she never prepared them to get married. She prepared them to be successful human beings. That's the difference between business schools that prepare people for a job versus people preparing them for a career. Of course, you need a job. You can't have a journey without a start. But that's not the end of the journey. It's only the start of a journey. So we have T-shaped professions. Why do we have curriculum 4.0? Everybody talks about continuous learner. It's very simple, Prabha. I come from industry. My last job was the president of a deep tech firm. Prior to that, I was leading many thousands of people in Oracle. The innovation cycles of industry are now crushed down to from 6 months to becoming even at the level of 3 months. Every 3 months, the industry is innovating itself. And somebody wrote and said the innovation cycles in academia is 5 years. Now, how can you have this disconnect of innovating once every 5 years when the industry service is innovating every 3 years? So curriculum 4.0 and 5.0, 6.0 is really about saying we need to continuously relook at what we teach and how we teach and to who we teach if you have to stay relevant. Third is I always tell people that you can't become Tendulkar by watching test matches. Everybody will tell you this. The only way you become Tendulkar is by practicing, falling down, getting up, falling down again, getting up, and learning. And that playground is industrial, which is why there is Industry Connect. What I teach in my classroom is sound theory, sound structure. But if I do not take it down to the level of execution, I can't. And I always tell people this Industry Connect is important. The ability to find real world problems to solve is important. Otherwise, you'll keep watching test matches. You don't become a cricketer. You don't become a cricketer. You keep watching stars. You don't become an astronomer. Everybody knows this, but who is implementing it? That's the third pillar. The fourth pillar is we talk about is practice-oriented pedagogical approach. Very similar in context and very simpler in driver to the one I mentioned earlier. And then about global connect. Man, look at this. The sheer demographics of India tell everybody that 1 in 4 employees in the world in 3 to 4 years' time is going to be an Indian. Whether we like it or not, whether the world likes it or not, the center of gravities are changing. And if India is going to become the center of gravity, we can no longer be creating people that only serve India. We got to create people who know how to serve the world. And I believe, Prabha, that's a big problem because I've lived across 3 continents and multiple cities in my life. It is very funny. You take a guy all the way to New York, the first thing he wants to order is butter chicken. Now, you can get that in Bangalore and Delhi and Calcutta in better quality, but why do we do that? We have to start to think global. If we have to be global, we have to start to think, behave global, whether it's cultural, whether it's having a global perspective, what we do. And I think that's about creating the next generation to stand proud, to stand confident, and to stand equipped to work at a global platform rather than just working in some few cities. And GCCs is a sad example of that. We want to bring New York to India. New York will stay where it is. Yeah. And the last one is holistic development. It's really 3 things, like we said. You know what? You have to be heart, mind, and soul. 2, as Peter Drucker says, don't ever ask yourself a question, how do I achieve? Ask yourself how I want to contribute. And that's where holistic development, social responsible comes. And finally, in a world that's constantly changing, if you can't be a lifelong learner, it's not. And people keep asking us this question, what does continuous employability mean? It means staying relevant. And last is research incubation. And look, research incubation is a wonderful thing. I come and teach and people say, Edwin, you're not a PhD, but you're a CXO, professor of practice. Tell them, look, man, which is a company that ever decided to invest $1 billion in a new business line if it didn't understand that space well? So research incubation is really about an approach to saying, how do I define problems better? How do I get a more holistic understanding of a problem? And that's what we need to prepare kids. So these are the 7 anchors, Prabha, very quickly.
Well said. So most of the institutions these days harp on accreditation. And JAGSoM has been one of the very few, the early six ones that got the AACSB accreditation. And it has many more like the SAQS and NBA and approvals and all that. For a student, I don't think they even realize why they are or how they benefit. So if you could just, in a nutshell, say, what are the specific advantages that come to the student when an institution has these kind of, accreditations?
See, if you say if you really look at accreditations is the heart of it, right? Accreditations are different from an ISO. You adhere to a set of standards. Now, WACSB and the rest, SCQs don't look at that. They look at two things. One is they look at whether you are true to mission. You made a promise. Are you fulfilling that promise in everything you do? Show us the proof that it is. If my promise is to create destructive learners, am I true to it? Nobody said you can't get a credit for that. Incidentally, in JAGSoM, we are true to that mission we talked about. Purpose is learner success, and the way is holistic and all that lovely stuff we talked about. So when I go to WACSB is saying, man, are you true to your mission? Show me proof of it. So when I get to WACSB, it says, I walk my talk. I'm telling my students, what you see is what you get. If I was teaching brand, my brand do is what my brand says. That's number one. The second thing that accreditations is telling you is, man, are you a constantly learning school? Are you charting a path? Are you measuring whether you're improving? If you're making a mistake, are you admitting your mistake and making a U-turn and recovering again? Are you better every day? That's all they do. That's why they have an accreditation and they have a re-accreditation. And now we're going to do a third re-accreditation of WCSB. Hopefully you get that done successfully. So that is really what it is. So a student, when he sees these symbols, he's not saying this is ISI certified. It's really saying this is true to what their promise is. And number two, this school is constantly evolving to be better every day. That's fundamentally what it is.
What are the admission criteria for JAGSoM's PGTM course? And how does the selection process assess a candidate's value beyond these scores? Because there are always test scores that you normally see.
You asked me a very, very provocative question. And, next time I go to a conference where I sit with other fellow directors and deans, they're going to throw stones at me for this answer. But I'm going to breathe true to my answer. Okay, so
Sure.
true to the answer is this. My mother was a school teacher. She used to teach in the government school. And I was hear her telling me this, maybe not as eloquently as I'm going to say it, but pretty eloquently. What's the role of a teacher? The role of a teacher is fundamentally to understand potential. If you've got a kid in your class that you identified a potential to come 30th in the class, your job as a teacher is to make sure that kid does not come 31st. And number two, you don't put undue pressure on the kid to come 29th. And if you've got a kid with the potential to come first in the class, then as a teacher, you have to make sure he or she doesn't come second. Measuring potential and the ability to be able to help people to achieve that potential, what it is. So now tell me, Prabha, how do many of these schools have great joy in celebrating they placed a guy at 40 crores and 40 lakhs, 1.2 crores? First of all, I ran a huge multi-billion-dollar P&L, and I still wonder where those jobs are. Because I really wish I was born today, because I never got those salaries in my life when I started. But for some reason, people are getting it. So be it. The question is very, very simple. Are we living in a fairy tale land where we say all frogs can come in and they'll become princes? It doesn't matter. The uglier you are, doesn't matter. Beta, main aapko machine mein dal dunga, you will come as a prince. That doesn't how it works. We live in an asynchronous world. We live in what's the great pride of an educational institution? To take a guy from Bits Pilani, who anyway, when he finishes, has got a job at the walkway salary of 14 lakhs because he's done his computer science. He works for 3 years in industry. Organically, he goes to 19 lakhs. Then that guy decides to take 2 years to go and study an MBA. Of course, he'll crack CAT because of Bits Pilani CAT. He's a CAT by himself. He's going to crack CAT. He gets into a good IIM. Not that I come from there, so I have nothing against it. I love that. I love my alumni. But the thing is, you take that guy, if he had not studied MBA in 2 years' time, his salary anyway would have become 24 lakhs. But having studied, you now place him as 28 lakhs. The economic value add to that is what, 3 lakhs? Percentage term is 3 by 24. Calculate for yourself what it is. It's less than 10%. It's a little more than 10%. What big deal? On the other hand, think about a school that picks up a guy from Bilaspur, Raipur, etc., done his BCom. The best job he can get is 2 lakhs. If he stayed for 2 years, he'll probably get 3 lakhs. And I'm able to take that guy into JAGSoM, build him up, and place him at 7 lakhs. My economic value is 3x. We are an inclusive school. We tell everybody, come in whatever potential you have, and I'll create a potential multiplier. I'll create the best version of you. So my admission process is an inclusive process. I have people who are joining us at a 90 plus CAT score, and I have people who join us as a 70 plus CAT score. And I make sure each of them achieves the best of the potential in 2 ways. One is, if your potential is to get 26 lakhs, I'll make sure you get 26 lakhs. If your potential is to get 7 lakhs, I'll make sure you get 7 lakhs. And please remember, your past doesn't define your future. Just because you couldn't crack CAT doesn't mean you're a loser. It just means you had a bad day. I'll help you to be the best you can be. That drives my admission criteria. And whatever I do, it's about being inclusive and saying, let me get the best guys with the best potential. And with this best ability and willingness to reach that potential. And whatever that potential, I'll take the guy.
That's actually very hopeful for, I guess, a lot of students, because always CAT score matters, and it's always a dream to go here, there, and that's how they measure things. So I think it's just a test, like you said.
See, Prabha, it's like this. I mean, if I go back to my school days, and maybe I'm going to remind you to go back to your school days, I really used to feel small because they would have this annual day and somebody will come on top and say, the winners are, let me say, man, if I'm not on the stage, then I'm a loser. And now as an educator, I'm telling you, there are only 2 kinds of people in my class, winners and potential winners. There's no losers in my class.
That's actually good. That's actually very hopeful, students. It's a very nice environment, I feel. Then the next question that I have is, to what extent do JAGSoM's pedagogical interventions, such as learning by solving, bridge the gap between the traditional management theories and the current corporate requirements?
You see, I may be leapfrogging my answer to other questions you may have, but I'm going to do that nevertheless. The challenge, you got the world of practice and you got the world of theory. The guys who come from the academic world are so solid in teaching you your frameworks, your structures, your theories. The guys who come from industry are great at telling you stories. But you ask them, how the hell were you successful? They're not able to decode it and give it back to you. And this chasm has always existed. It is some way to find a way to bridge this chasm where you can take practice and link it back into theory and codify how success can be replicable to people. Then you created a scalable model. So if you look at all our intervention code, which is the real thing of saying, how do I have my pedagogy? I mean, I teach marketing and strategy, and I like to believe my kids love my classes. But I tell them, I tell you a story, I abstract the story, I build a framework, I take that framework, and I teach you how to adapt that and apply that in real life. Now, that is all what our practice courses are, whether it's IIP, whether it's research incubation, whether it's social immersion program, whether it is about projects in every course, whether about getting industry guys to run courses during the class, whatever it is, whether it's having a Bloomberg terminal. I know, probably, you know, we have a fund called SMIFT, Student Managed Investment Fund. It's 20 lakhs or so that is given by alumni. So when my kids want to learn capital markets, I can do as much as I want to teach them. I've created a listed fund. My students operate that fund, and that fund outperforms 98% of all other funds in the National Stock Exchange. Now, they have a way to really apply with real money. I mean, they're not paying monopoly with paper money. This is real money, Prabha. I mean, imagine the joy of kids to be able to do this and say, you know what? I just actually multiplied somebody's money. I've understood capital markets. I've understood what portfolio research is all about. I've understand how to read the leaves in the teacup. That's only one example, but we got a host of these things that drive our thing. And it's practice anchored in many ways, yes.
Right. Could you share details about the scholarship offerings that you have, and how does the institute identify deserving candidates during the admission process?
So First of all, deserving candidates, first of all, they fall into many categories. One is, do good performers need to be encouraged? The answer is yes. But I try to tell them, man, you performed well. But do you want your reward to be a scholarship? Because if you take that scholarship, there's somebody else who can't afford to pay that can't get that scholarship. So I like to dissuade top performers from taking a scholarship. That's against, not that I don't give it, I would give it. In fact, one of the criteria for getting my scholarship is academic excellence, consistently demonstrated across. But I tell them, if I had to choose between you and a guy who has the same excellence but has a little lesser ability to pay, where should I get my money? I'd put my money to pay who deserves it and cannot do it without that. So it's a balance of these two things. But fundamentally, it's about excellence, and two is about the ability to make expensive education, higher education, affordable to people who can't actually get it. So I do that. Apart from that, Prabhat, there are many other ways. Scholarship is not the only way. I mean, I tell people you can pay in installments, and I will make sure you get the installments, interest free, and I absorb the interest by tying up with the Grey Quest or an NBFC or whatever it is. So it's not just in terms of this that I help people. I help it by being flexible in the way I get deserving kids to pay their way through education. So yeah, it's a very interesting and involved conversation, especially when I meet people. First of all, getting them to open up and say, I need help. Prabha, there can be nothing more fulfilling for me as a human being and as an educator to have that conversation. So, I mean, we have a lot of scholarships. We give it to many people. There's a fair amount of my turnover that's set aside for this. But I find that through a combination of being able deserving it and needing it, and looking at the best intersection of those two things.
Okay. So, how does learning from faculty, now that we are having this conversation, and I feel maybe there is faculty with academic experience, there is somebody like you with a lot of corporate experience. It's a mix and match of the real world and the academic world. So how do the students get prepared for real world management challenges? What do you inculcate?
You see, the thing is, let me share. I mean, there's a particular business school that runs a course on a 6-month diploma on professor of practice. Okay. And often they call me to either inaugurate it or be the chief guest for it. And I accept it because I'd like to see many more like me coming in, because first of all, when you have been a CXO, you don't need a job. You think you also earn the right to be in a golf course for most days in the week. So to have people at the CXO suite willing to come down and say, my journey is still not done, though I can afford to play golf, I want to spend my time creating the leaders of tomorrow. So first of all, how do you make that attractive? Because money is not going to attract them. Only a sense of purpose is going to attract them. Okay. And that sense of purpose is telling them you can create learning in a classroom that other people cannot. But while you're doing that, try to understand all sound practice is built on sound theory. So when you go into a school, you have to find a way to merge experience with theory. And then I tell my colleagues who come from the other end of the world, hey, buds, I can't be a Michael Porter without a Michael Porter. But how do I help Michael Porter to understand the real world? And I think there, Prabha, we need a transformation in the Indian education system. The guys who are IIMs, or many of the government-run schools, by default sit on boards.
Right.
And many of them do it because they get it's very rewarding. But are they able to take the learnings of a boardroom into a classroom? I'm not too sure. And I can't answer for them. I think each of them have to answer for themselves. And people who come from schools where it's otherwise, we have to have industry that encourages academia to sit in their boards, to contribute to their thinking, so that they can not just bring the learning of a school into a boardroom, but to take the learnings of a boardroom back into school. Now, whether you do that through the boardroom, you do that through strong consulting, you do that through advisory, through MDPs. I think the minute we're able to create these kind of things, we're able to get the best of two worlds. We're able to get the practitioners to be able to come and teach it with sound theory and framework, and you got the academic that's able to also teach something. So you know what? You're creating a hybrid of highly successful people. As long as you keep them mutually exclusive, they're two different worlds. And I think at JAGSoM, where we've been successful is the ability to be able to bridge these two worlds. So nobody sits in a room saying, as professor of practice and professor of theory, if that has to be three. No, that's not so. I think we're all educators, we're all teachers, and we just come from different parts of the world, right? So either you are going to teach Ramayana because you're Valmiki, or you're going to teach Ramayana because you are Rama, or you're going to teach Ramayana because you read Ramayana. Either way, there's a space for everybody to teach Ramayana. Yeah.
Right. So if you had to define what contributes in the learning experiences, what are the various things like, I mean, experiential learning, live projects, what are the kinds of things that happen so that contributes actually towards this entire journey of the student?
I think there are many things that contribute. There's no one answer for that, Prabha. The first is, how do you make learning enjoyable? So I tell my colleagues, as my teacher, I've got to have people who run to my classroom. And they've got to be there before your class starts. The very fact they're coming late means they wish they could miss 3 more minutes. They can't. So that's number one. How do I bring joy into the classroom? And that's about rediscovering the purpose of being a teacher. The second is, how do you bring the real world into the classroom? Because only when somebody believes they're benefiting will they learn. So you got to make learning enjoyable. Third is, you got to have the humility to be able to say that industry is innovating faster. So if I cannot have industry come into my classroom, not as a guest lecture, but as an integral part of the delivery process, then you can't make it learning outcomes to be enjoyable. I'll give you an example. We have a program, a BBA program, co-developed and co-delivered with KPMG, where 40% of the teaching is done by KPMG. We got KPMG guys bringing the AI tools into the classroom. They're bringing the ERP tools into the classroom. They are bringing their cases into the classroom. So this is not like saying one lecture comes, does some guest lecture and goes away. That's like flirting with a solution. Either you're in or you're not. So I believe that a big part of it is for us to be able to go beyond the talk of industry involvement by actually sitting and co-developing and co-learning with industry. I mean, if I have to teach, if I want to go and teach how to use the tools for content creation, then I better have Adobe with me in my classroom, not as a tool, but as people who are willing to teach. And one of the things, Prabha, I can tell you is, when you become a executive in the corporate, the desire to give is so huge. We're not tapping into that desire. And I know because I come from there. And if I can create the channel for that desire in a very structured way, and add all the things that I talked about, classroom can be fun.
Right. Yep. What are the strategies that you have been implementing, to expand the internship opportunities, industry collaborations, and of course, final placements? That's one of the things that students actually in India look. I don't think it's anywhere else.
No, I don't think so. I think it'll be fair. It's only fair. Yeah, we are a high aspiration society. For many of us, we come from families where my paycheck makes a huge difference to the family. Where's the doubt? We come from a country where most of us pay a loan to go through our education. We have to find a way to repay those loans. So the only thing is, finding a job for my student is a duty. But there are 2-3 things that I tell people. Number one, that can't be a reject. That has to be start of your journey. 2, I can take you to the best interviews in the world. I can get you the job. And that's an honest promise I make from day one. Which is why when you look at my latest placement report, Prabha, you will see that I have 8% of my class that have got salaries greater than 20 lakhs. I've got 15% of my class with salaries 5 to 20 lakhs. And I'm transparently admitting and saying I've got 12% of my class, which is paid below 7 lakhs. And in those 7 lakhs are the people with the potential to earn 7, but there are also people in that batch that had the potential to earn 15, but they're ending up earning 6. So this is the first two parts. The next part is starting the engagement with industry early, which means I tell industry that why don't you contribute in creating the dish? So today I'm trying to create a continuum between the guy who comes to my desk lecture to the guy who actually places my guy. They're not different people. So you want to participate in creating them, which is why our internships is 4 months. We are one of the few schools where my internships comes at the end of the learning, because it is the precursor, is the engagement before the marriage. You see, in metaphoric terms, and then we have all of these industry interventions where we get industry to give us these projects. Now, apart from that, employability. You see, here's another piece, Prabha. I mean, though you've asked the question indirectly. Take a simple skill that you cannot do without. The ability to stand up and present. Anybody will tell you, if you don't have that capability, aapko naukri nahi milne wala. You're not going to get a job. Or you're not even going to grow in the organization. You're going to be noticed by how you articulate what you know. Now, you also know, Prabha, that the ability to stand in front of a crowd and talk is one of the top 3 fears in the world.
Right.
You know that?
Right.
We all know that. That means people say, I'll rather die than to stand and speak. As somebody put it very well, Prabha, I didn't know the meaning of eternity until I stood in front of a group and spoke. Now, when you have a fear like that, how do you have a pedagogic system where you catch this person who fears water and throw them in without a lifeboat, without a life jacket? Now, whatever little confidence they had, Prabha, that also is lost. So the question now is, we were grappling with this and said, how do we create practice in an environment that is safe? Whether it is presentation, whether it's conflict management, whether it's the ability to think critically, whether it's question of lateral thing, whether it's conflict resolution, whether it's negotiation, how do I practice in a safe world? So we've collaborated in employing an AI platform, which today a kid can actually go in and present in the privacy of bedroom, make a fool of himself or herself. Nobody's laughing because agentic AI doesn't laugh at you. That's brilliant. And it tells you objectively how to improve. And then I reached enough of safety for me to be able to say, now I can jump into the water. These are all the interventions that we're doing, integrating AI into every curriculum, teaching kids, making them lose their fear of numbers, lose their fear of technology. All these lovely things is what ends up saying, I can find people to place the best. And then obviously choosing the right sectors, choosing the right industries, helping kids find the jobs they love to do. Because Prabha is not only finding a job. Go look at why people are getting disillusioned with MBAs. They're getting disillusioned because industry is getting disillusioned with MBAs. Why is industry getting disillusioned with MBAs? Because that joker comes and 16 months later is gone. Why is he gone? Because suddenly he discovers this is not the girl I wanted to get married to or the boy I wanted to get married to. Now, why is that discovery happening at the cost of my customers, my industry friends? It's got to happen early in the cycle, which means self-discovery is antecedent. So if you can help kids to understand their passion, what they want to be, equip them on that journey, and find the best match for them, you're maximizing the chance of them getting a job, and not just getting a job, growing and being successful in their careers. So it is a holistic journey. So for me, placement is not an event, it's a process.
I was going to ask you about AI transforming because AI is like now the, how do you call, the mantra kind of word everyone uses it.
Absolutely.
So how do you see management education evolving and incorporating AI to meet all these changing?
Good question, Prabha. Very pertinent question. And today you can't have any conversation without this question. Okay. It's become so ubiquitous. Now, we have an event called Confluence. It is an event that happens every quarter where we get industry and academy together to grapple with problems that is pertinent, present, real. And whether invariably it's about AI. So my last 2-3 confluences all been around AI in healthcare, AI in financial services. How is AI changing the relationship between doctor and patient? How is AI changing capital markets? so on and so forth. And I get some fascinating guys sitting in the panel. These are guys who are practice leads for McKinsey. They are guys who are like Narayan, Devi Shetty's son coming and sitting down from Narayan Health, or professors. And I'm getting academic to get a grapple with. Having done this 4, 5, 6 times, here's my there are three learnings. Number one, AI is not going to take my job, but people are losing jobs. Yes. Professionals that have embraced AI are going to take away jobs. Surgeons who know how to use AI in the surgery are going to take away jobs from the other surgeons. Traders on Wall Street who know how to use AI in the algorithms better than others are going to take away a job. HR professionals who are embraced AI in employee engagement, retention, and acquisition are going to take away your jobs. Branding professionals who are able to employ AI and make the dollar go further are going to take away your jobs. So people who are going to take away your jobs is not AI. AI is a stupid agent. How can it take away my job? But people who are going to embrace AI are going to take away your jobs. This is number one. So I'm going to help people to embrace AI. Number two, AI is suddenly brought to the spotlight that I'm not going to be hired for my hard skills. I'm going to be hired for my soft skills. So soft skills have become the hard currency. AI is now going to throw 3 options at me, and I want to be paid to take a judgment call on which of those 3 options. AI is going to throw three candidates to me as a HR recruitment head, and I got to choose which of those 3. AI is not going to do that. No. So you look at all these soft skills, they have suddenly become extremely important. They become the hard currency. That means now I have to equip the guy not just for the hard abilities, I've got to equip him for the soft abilities. Now, many schools are struggling with it. We are not, probably, because we've been doing this from 2011. Our PEP program is only that 10 credits enhancing people's personality are exactly the 7 skills we're talking about. So it's okay for us to continue. For the others, they're struggling a bit. We're here to help them if they want. The third is a very humbling realization. ChatGPT itself is fighting for relevance. Anthropic is saying, what is the next spin of my LLM? When industry itself is the search for a solution, how are business schools saying they've cracked the problem of embracing AI? It fascinates me. It means there are brighter minds in business schools than are in the industry. But fortunately, they are like $800 billion, $200 billion, something must be wrong with them, right? So I have learned that if you want to embrace AI, industry can only be, you have to partner with industry to bring AI into the classroom. Last, kids ask me, which school should I join to prepare myself for AI? I tell them, I don't know the formula for happiness. I know the formula for sadness. I tell them, don't join the schools that have introduced new courses in AI. AI is not a separate ability. AI is an ability integral to what I've already done. There's got to be AI in brand management. There's got to be AI in key account management. There's got to be AI in financial management, AI in capital markets, AI in mergers and acquisitions, and so on and so forth. So the challenge today for schools is, how do I integrate AI into the courses I teach rather than have separate AI courses? This are the 4 or 5 things that we have embraced as learning and trying to implement the way we are. So if somebody says, honestly, I have found the answer, they're obviously telling the truth. They're not telling the truth. If somebody says, we think we are directionally correct and we are on the path to mastering this together with other stakeholders in industry, I think that's more likely to be true.
Right. My last question, sir. What is the advice you would like to share with students who want to build a successful career in management?
The first thing is, you can't excel in something unless it's what you love doing. Prabha, you're good at what you do because I'm sure you love what you do.
Yes, it.
I'm good at what I do because I love what I do. So first of all, I tell people, make sure you're in love with management before you take on management. Just like if somebody asks me what will make a good engineer, I'll tell them the same thing. Make sure you enjoy being an engineer if you want to be a good engineer. I want to create a career in teaching. I make sure that you are enjoying teaching too. That's number 1. Number 2, if you want to be great in management, you want to build a successful career in management, you got to understand management is about a few things only. Number 1 is about how do I leverage resources to produce the best optimal results for an organization. And those resources, we all know what they are. There's money, there's people, there's infrastructure. And if you want to be a great management, you've got to learn to master these three things. Can I master one out of the three? Sorry, buddy, it doesn't work. All your organs must work to be healthy. There's no choice to this. So you got to be holistic in that understanding. I think mastering the fundamentals is it. You go look at the best engineers, their fundamentals are solid. As Elon Musk says, you got to have a physics approach to excellence, which means your first principles have to be right. Okay? That's how he's redefined the world of EVs, and he's redefined how rockets go into space. He does that at a fraction of the cost NASA does, because he goes back to first, these are the physics way of looking at a problem. That's the second. The third way to be successful in one's career in management is the ability to equip yourself with all of the skills I talked about. The ability to communicate, your ability to lateral think, your ability to manage conflict, your ability to problem solve, ability to critical think, your ability to inspire and manage people. I mean, these are the differentiators. What you learn in business school is your foundation. All of these other things I talked about, ability to apply, all these other skills, that's your superstructure. And you got 2 years to do it, Prabha. That's tough. Hard work. Yeah.
I think it's an evolving thing. One can just, reach up to a starting point, and then you go on building. And everyone has a right to change on the path, to tweak here and there, just to suit.
I like that path, tweak here and there. Prabha, many people ask me, Edwin, which career should I take? Beta, मैं क्या बताऊंगा? As Steve Jobs said, because they believe Steve Jobs more than they believe you and me. Like Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots looking backward. So you see, I can't give you a path, but here's what I can give you as an inspiration. The compass has 4 points: north, south, east, and west. So I tell people, if you want to be successful in your career must be somewhere between northeast and northwest. But it's going somewhere down south, you're in a problem.
Yeah.
So somewhere around that, if you're there, you're good, because you will only chart your way as you go through the way. But you got to have a broad direction. Like this old Spanish saying, and let's probably end with that, Prabhas. It goes like this. It says, if a ship does not know which harbor it's headed for, no wind is the right wind.
Yes, that's very profound. Okay. Thank you so much. That was very, I think it was fun and insightful. So,
I enjoyed myself. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my thoughts. And Prabha, all the very best. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. Thank you.